All right, let's dive in. Today, we're talking about a duo that's seriously changing the game for front-end testing, Vitest and React Testing Library. If you've ever wanted to pull your hair out because your tests break every single time you refactor your code, well, you're going to want to stick around for this.
I mean, does this sound familiar? You spend a bunch of time cleaning up a component, you make the logic way better, and it works perfectly in the browser. But then you run your tests, and bam, a sea of red. Why? It's usually because those tests were stuck on how the component was built, not what it actually does for the user. It's a massive headache that just slows everybody down. You know, for the longest time, just setting up a test environment felt like a whole project on its own. You'd have to fight with configs for tools like Babel, you'd install a mountain of dependencies, and then spend hours figuring out why the test runner was giving you these cryptic errors. It all led to fragile tests and a feedback loop that was anything but fast. So this brings us right to the heart of the problem we're trying to solve. How do we write tests that we can actually maintain? Tests that give us real confidence that our app is working for our users? And how do we make sure that when we refactor, our tests become a safety net, not another problem to solve?
And the answer really boils down to this single powerful idea from the creators of Testing Library. It's a total shift in how we think. Instead of poking around at the internal machinery of our components, we need to test them from the outside in, just like a real person would.
So yeah, before we even write a single line of code, we have to get on board with this philosophy. It's all about focusing on the user's experience. This mindset is the secret sauce that makes our tests so much more valuable and, honestly, way more resilient.
And this slide just nails the difference. The old way was all about testing things like a component's internal state or its private methods, which is exactly why those tests were so brittle. The new way, we only care about what the user sees on the screen and how they can interact with it. We're testing the public face of our UI, not its private implementation details.
Okay, so what is Testing Library exactly? Think of it as a whole family of tools that help us write tests based on that user-first philosophy. But here's the key thing to remember. It is not a test runner. It doesn't actually execute your tests. It just gives you the right tools to write them in a user-focused way. It's our guide, but we still need an engine to make it all go.
And that brings us to the engine. This is where Vitest enters the picture. It's this super modern, next-generation testing framework that's going to actually run the awesome tests we write with Testing Library's help.
Look, if there's one word to describe Vitest, it's fast. Like, ridiculously fast. And because it's built right on top of Vite, if your project is already using Vite, the setup is practically zero effort. It just reads your existing Vite config, and boom, everything works. No more wrestling with setups, you can just start writing tests. All right, enough theory. We've got our philosophy from Testing Library, and we've got our super fast engine from Vitest. Let's put them together and see how this actually works. Seriously, getting started is this simple. It's basically 3 steps. 1, install a couple of dev dependencies. 2, add a tiny little test block to your vtit config file. And 3, add a test script to your package.json. That is it. You are ready to rock. Okay, check this out. Here's the component we're going to test, a super simple error message that just displays a message prop. Now, see that data test ID attribute? That little thing is our golden ticket. It gives our tests a stable, reliable way to find this element without having to depend on fragile things like CSS class names that might change a week from now.
Every single one of our tests is going to follow this simple, repeatable mantra. Render, find, assert. That's it. First, we get the component on the screen. Second, we find the thing we care about. And third, we check that it's doing what it's supposed to do. Let's break it down.
Step 1. Render. We import the render function from Testing Library and just pass our component right into it. What this does is it basically creates a little self-contained mini browser for our component to live in, making it ready for us to inspect. Step 2. Find. Testing Library gives us this awesome global object called screen, which is like our test's pair of eyes on that mini browser. We can use it to look for things. Here, we're using getByTestID to find that message container we set up before. Our test is acting just like a user, finding that specific message on the page. And finally, step 3, the moment of truth. Assert. We use Vitest's expect function to make our claim. We're saying, hey, we expect this message element to have the text email is already taken. If it does, the test passes. If not, it fails. This is where we confirm that our component is actually delivering the right experience to the user.
So when you follow this pattern, you move beyond just checking if your code runs. You start checking if your application actually works for people. And that right there is what it means to test with real confidence.
So what's the bottom line here? Well, by using this approach, we get tests that actually mirror how users behave. We get an incredibly fast feedback loop thanks to Vitest. We spend way less time fixing fragile tests, and we gain so much more confidence to refactor and improve our code, knowing our test suite has our back.
And that's a wrap on this explainer. I just want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. If you started writing tests that focused only on what the user can see and do, how would that fundamentally change the way you design, build, and refactor your applications? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.